Good morning. How's everyone doing today? It's a beautiful day, and it's great to see you all on Maisha T. Hill. Super grateful to be present and alive with you all today, taking life just one day at a time. And I hope you are too. It is Saturday, and we are just continuing on with our live-a-thon. This live-a-thon will go until about 10:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and then we will go live again this evening from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m., calling it Going Live After Dark. So, for all of you who aren't sure who I am, I'm Maisha T. Hill. I'm the author of Heal Your Way Forward, the Co-Conspirator's Guide to an Anti-Racist Future. We have still with us our platform Check Your Privilege, which was taken down about 7 months ago by Meta. And so now Heal Your Way Forward is our collective rebirth, and super grateful for the opportunity to be present for this rebirth. And I believe we have just a small delay, and that's okay. Um, and again, just thank each and every one of you for all of your support. Thank each and every one of you for giving donations, and thank each and every one of you for caring for ourselves and our community. Before we kick off right now, I'm going to go ahead and start our morning off with a video. We are going to engage and watch a conversation about AI. It's a part two of a two-part conversation with my friend Lisa Flynn. We're talking about big data, and I am super excited for you all to enjoy this conversation. And we'll be right back.
AI, and OpenAI just released Operator, and so that lets you build agentic AI. Now, here's a big difference: Operator on your system can browse So you can be sure that, like with our talk last time about cybersecurity, threat actors and cyber attackers, now they can just be like, be a social engineer and go fishing or go fishing, and basically they don't stop, right? So it doesn't need the same amount of prompting as we did before.
Right.
On the bright side, my PhD thesis, is working on building basically tutors for medical students, that when the attendings and the professors, they can only take so many students at once, right? Because it's a lot of human interaction. So, and at the same time that we're facing healthcare deserts all over the world, where we don't on their own, they're now going to have this amazing sidekick to really help them augment their education. So we've seen studies out of Nigeria where agentic AI was used to help students learn English, and this was one of the first studies. And it like the kids that were in the group that used the AI, their grades, not only on English but on other subjects, because they learned how to use AI effectively, their grades went up, all of them, as compared to the control group that wasn't using any of the AI. So we're hoping for the same thing in medicine, not only for the doctors that are graduating to be better prepared, but ultimately to allow the trainers and the professors and the attendings and all the medical experts to be able to train more than just a handful of people at a time. So my aim is to increase the workforce in medicine at that end. And same for cybersecurity. So we're creating agents for cybersecurity as well. Those are two areas that are really important to us as a world, where we just don't have enough will. So that's the upside to agentic AI. Does that make sense? You're muted still. Yep.
Dogs are barking. I think that's really fascinating. I think it's like the good and the bad about AI. On one hand, you can really use it and code it for good, right? Like I've been shown how to find recipes or eat for my body type, right? And then on the other hand, like you have people who will use it to cause harm. And as I'm hearing that, I'm curious about your insights around this. What is DeepSeek? Because, or I think I said it wrong. But DeepSeek. What is that app? And if it's Chinese, and I'm not trying to start any problems, But like, what are the risks involved with us downloading apps that are not built in this country?
Yeah. So DeepSeek is pretty groundbreaking. Just like it's kind of the Facebook to MySpace. Remember MySpace?
Yeah.
So OpenAI came out with ChatGPT, and now we've had this generative AI, from lots of different people on the scene for a while. So those created basically building blocks for other people now to come and do better in technology. One of the real downsides to the Gen AI that we have right now is that it takes a lot of computing power and it takes a lot of energy to keep the server farms where the cloud actually are, server farms and buildings, and they get really hot. And so it takes a lot. Typically, water is used as a coolant, but that's a scarce resource in a lot of areas, Nevada being one of them. So there's definitely downside there, where like if everybody's using this forever and ever, that's is it going to help in this one area but hurt our climate so badly in the other that like the humans aren't going to exist anymore to use the AI or not, right?
Right.
DeepSeek kind of, once they saw, and there is truly such a thing as a reverse engineer. When you see something working, people who are familiar with the area can basically back their way out of it and figure out how to build it themselves. So a team in China built DeepSeek for like, I'm going to be off with the numbers here, but like maybe 20 million, maybe it was 2 million, 2 million or 20 million. Sorry, don't quote me on this part. As opposed to like hundreds of millions that it took to create ChatGPT. We saw this in the semiconductor industry too, right? Like it takes millions to make the first one, but once you know how to make it, then you can make it better. So DeepSeek has another. So they have two things that are really cool. One is you can use it on your local computer. Okay, so that's ChatGPT. The rest of them, they're all based in the cloud. That means that all of your data is going to their servers. And even if they say what you created, they can change the terms and conditions anytime they want to. And there's definitely a trust factor with like who's going to gain access to everything that you put into your chats. Yeah.
Right.
So DeepSeek is allowing you to basically download the program, just like we used to like have programs where we have to put the CDs into our computer to install. Yeah. So you can download the program and you can install it locally on your own computer, so that that it's not going anywhere. Now it does cost something to run it. It's a little bit slower right now, but the give and take. So in terms of China, if you're running everything on your computer, if it's locally hosted, as we say, and if your computer's not hooked up to anything that no one can get into, you're good. You're running it all on your own. The downside is at this point you need to have a pretty big kid computer to make it in a way that's functional, because it requires a lot of computing power to run the program. But it's also a huge shakeup that China is now in the race that had really been predominantly, the United States. And, we talked a little bit about politics last time. I wouldn't be afraid of that from China. I don't think that, I wouldn't be afraid of this app from China. It was built by a millennial. I mean, it's a pretty cool story. It's all over the news right now. So if you just do a little Googling or talk to your ChatGPT about it, it can explain the difference too. And that's one thing that we want to talk about, I think, a little bit today is prompt engineering and kind of how to talk to our machines. But before we get off of DeepSeek, I think it's a really huge step in the right direction in terms of privacy. And accessibility. If people don't have cloud operations, and thinking in people for the world, right, who need to have access to information just like we do, and as we move towards 6G technologies and the metaverse, I think DeepSeek is just a really good step in the right direction. So it's going to be another few minutes probably before it's like readily available and widespread use cases, but definitely something to keep your eye on. Yeah.
Okay. So that's really good to know, because I know a lot of people are like, we kind of don't know what to believe from our government. We don't know. And then when they're telling us something that's dangerous, if it's really dangerous, because we just don't know. Right. And so it's really good to have like someone who knows that data science and cybersecurity and social engineering to kind of give us that, like, it's okay, give it a try. It's a lot safer
Yeah.
because you don't have to use it in a cloud where someone owns your data. You can just download it. That's pretty fascinating. I might have to check that out.
Yeah. And it's going to get.
Uh-oh, you froze. Oh no, Lisa froze.
Just,
We
here
missed
we are.
what you just said because you froze a little bit.
That's some of my best work. Shoot.
I know.
So it's going to get bigger. It's going to get better, faster, and more accessible. This is like the first release. And so they'll continue to iterate and improve it to where it will likely be mainstream fairly soon. And then that also means that they're not going to be the only one for long. It's not going to take long for other tech companies to come in and say, now we have our version of DeepSeek, in the same way that DeepSeek said, now we have our version of ChatGPT, right?
And that's the thing about, be living in the world we live in, is that there's always competition, right? And there's always like ours is better than theirs, and here's why. And so it's going to be really interesting to see how DeepSeek gets colonized, digital colonization, how some things get borrowed from DeepSeek to make America great again. I didn't mean it just came out, and that felt so uncomfortable saying that. So let's pretend that. Can we just all pretend I didn't just say that? Okay, great.
Yeah, just rewind, take it right back. Yep.
Great. Too bad it's live, and people are probably like, what? So Lisa, if someone is using something like a ChatGPT, or Gemini, or Meta has one called something else, what should people do to protect their data? Like, how can you use these tools and keep yourself and your data protected?
Yeah. So first of all, don't ever put any personal, we call them PIIs, personally identifying information out there. So, if you want it to look at documents of yours, you can redact, names, addresses, phone numbers, like we talked about last time. Don't put your phone number anywhere. So that's the basic. And then I take it off of, right now you have the ability to work in ChatGPT and kind of like massage it and change it. I always take the like good enough version out of ChatGPT, put it in a different document, and then do the rest of my work from there. Okay. It's also really important to make sure that you're not plagiarizing other people's work. So, ChatGPT pulls from the internet. So if you're researching on a subject, right? Let's say anti-racism and anti-racial racism work, you have to be sure that what your ChatGPT is telling you did not steal that intellectual property from Maisha T. Hill, right?
Yeah.
And another point about that, if you are taking somebody's work, somebody's book, somebody's workbook, somebody's posts from Instagram, and if you are putting that into ChatGPT and coming up with a class or coaching or anything as a result of that, you are stealing their IP, and that is a punishable offense. So
I want to just say out loud right now, this was not planned, but I want to say thank you for saying that, because there are people who I have seen. I just know heal your way forward when I see it. So I just do want to let you know that, like, in 2025, when I see it, I will actually have someone ask you some questions, because that is harmful and that is theft. And I'm not going to stand for it anymore, because I've stood for it I've seen stuff get done for a couple years now, and it's just too much.
Yeah, it is. And it's too easy for people to get like the digital copy of a book and then just copy the entire book, put it into ChatGPT and talk with it about the book. And, and you can do that for things, right? Like I could do that and say, I really want to learn more about nonviolent communication, or I want to learn more about, I really want to process through these steps that I read about and that I loved in Heal Your Way Forward. But and that's okay for you to personally interact with it that way, so that you can gain a better understanding of the knowledge of what you're reading. Any work that is derived from that belongs to the original author. Right. So, we're seeing the celebrities being able to stop people from copying from them. But, I worry about authors like you where people, think that they're going to be okay just to take what the work that you've done and put a new package around it, put a new brand around it, and think that that's going to be that's going to fly, because it's not.
I think and that's something that a lot of us need to consider, right? Like, am I learning from this person because they're really helping me do some shifting, and I'm really applying it to my life? Or am I learning from this person? I'm speaking directly to people in white bodies. Am I learning from this person so I can figure out how they've created a community of white bodied people to be together, to be real, raw, messy, so I can then take their work and duplicate it and build my own community? That's also colonization. And I think that's one of my biggest fears in my work, is that there are so many folks you have to be in our community for you to understand what I'm saying. There's so many folks who have never had what our community offers that people do copy. And it's unfortunate. And with Chat GPT and other sources, like, it is kind of scary to know that your work is out there, because people can definitely copy and try to make it their own.
Yeah. Now, here's one thing you can do to make sure you're not doing that. So this is what's great about all the generative AI. So you can work with your AI and come up with something like, if I wanted to post something on Instagram about how much I love your work and wanted to share that, I can work with ChatGPT on that. You can also turn around and whatever it has generated for you, you can say, please do a review, cite your sources. Let me know if you've seen this anywhere else, because I don't want to be plagiarizing, right? So you can ask ChatGPT to cite your sources. You can ask it to work as a plagiarism checker for you. So that's, and this is kind of a nice segue too into, how prompt engineering works. So sort of how to get the most out of to capture making mistakes. You want it to augment basically what you're able to do, but then turn around and have it be your teacher as well, and say, now that we've just finished that work session, I want to make sure that this is all above board. There's no plagiarism. I've cited all of my sources, and it will do that.
That's dope. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, here's what else ChatGPT will do. I'm sure we've all heard of hallucinations with AI, and that's basically where it just makes shit up, right? All of these AIs, they want to please the user. So they're programmed to please. And so if it doesn't know something, sometimes it just makes it up, right? So you want to make sure, and if it's an area that you don't know very well, you can tell your AI to act as, so this is part of prompting, act as a professor in literature and review what I just wrote, make sure that I didn't plagiarize, make sure the grammar's correct, da, 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 and give me feedback on the strong points, the weak part, to make it better.
Oh, that's so great.
Instead of saying just write me something, you tell it who you like. Think of the professional in the field of whatever it is that you're working in. So it's in marketing, act as a or act as a creative director, and create a series of LinkedIn posts that will help drive business to my class that I'm going to be teaching. Work with it in that way, instead of just saying create some LinkedIn posts, right? And so the more information you give it, if you can even ask it for information. What are keywords? I want to do a course on how to teach prompt engineering with AI. What are the keywords that people are using to search for, to learn? If they don't know the word prompt engineering, what are they searching for? So the AI will go get that information for you. Yeah. And then say, great. And oftentimes it'll say, would you like me to create a post? Yes, please. Right. Even in that, right? Yes, please. Act as a copywriter, act as a creative director, act as a writer. And then you can even tell it the tone, right? So act as a professional writer from, I'm trying to think of from the New Yorker, right? Or act as a professional writer from Forbes or Wired, or Better Homes and Gardens, or whatever audience you are talking to, you can work on, you can tell your AI to be a certain type of person or expert, and then you can tell them what tone you want them to take. Be concise, right? Technically, or This is be I call it flowery, in terms of what it's doing. Um,
Yeah.
and the more you can tell it what you want the output to look like, the better it's going to create for you. So if you're doing reports at your work, first of all, make sure you remove any personally identifying information of you or your clients. Obviously, no credit card numbers or addresses or phone numbers like that. But you can use AI. I taught my mom how to do sales reports from it, and it's saving her just a ton of time because it was pretty prescriptive what she needed to do, and she had an
Right.
example. So she had like a template of past reports that she's done, and then she just said, you can either input it, you can say here's new information, or you can say ask me questions that you need to fill out the next report so that it will match the previous report. Ask me
Oh,
questions
wow.
one at a time. Yep. And you can answer. So you can either say, ask me a series of questions, and it'll come up with 10 questions, or you say, ask me one at a time. And it asks you the question, you type it in. Ask you the next question, you type it in. And then here's your report. Done.
Oh, that's dope.
Right.
Are you all
So I
learning
have
anything from this? I'm like looking at the audience. Everyone's just like listening. Do you all have any questions for Lisa, or what are you learning? Like, engage with us. Tell us. Because I think a lot of us see Chat GPT and we're like, oh, okay, that's cool. All right, that's fun.
right,
I don't know how to
right.
use it, so it doesn't apply to me. But you just shared with us a couple of tangible examples of how you can take the technology and work it for social good and not just take data.
Right,
All right.
right. Right. Well, while we have maybe some questions coming, the other one that I'll just throw out for your audience too and your community is I love it for meal planning and grocery shopping. So I say I need to make I want you to make a meal plan with a grocery list for the week. I want to have 4 dinners. I'm mainly vegetarian. These are what we like, or use seasonal vegetables or whatever.
Yeah.
And I don't want to spend more than X amount per meal or X amount per week. So make me a meal plan and a menu and a grocery list for the week where I can utilize the same things, right? So you things and just use a little bit of it so nothing goes bad. So it can make you really efficient list. And then if you shop at Trader Joe's, tell it that's where you shop. If you shop at Safeway or Kroger or the Piggly Wiggly, whatever it is,
Yeah.
they know those because all those stores have an online presence. So they know all of those as well. And it spits out the meal plan, your shopping list, how much it should cost, and then recipes. So tell it I don't want to spend more than 30 or 45 minutes making any of this. I want to have enough for leftovers. I have a family of 4, So the more information you give it, and then once it learns that, it remembers that. So you go into your same chat and say, okay, now let's do it again for the next week, right? I don't want to eat the exact same as last week, but we still have the same general preferences. Or if you're on I'm on the Mediterranean diet and I, just started it as a New Year's resolution, but I don't know how to shop for it or how to cook for it.
Pausing just for a second, because I want to, like, Sam just left a really great comment here. They said, asking myself what a liberated AI prompt might look like. And I kind of just made one up, and I would love if anyone would like to try it and maybe join me or share with me what came up. So I thought of one. And for those of us who are part of the collective or just interested in our work, I think a really good prompt would be help me adapt my life. Skip adapt again, but help me adapt my life to revolutionary living, centering Black liberation. Make sure you give me a daily schedule so my time, talents, and dollars help me live so say, liberated lifestyle. I kind of just made that up, Sam, but I'll be curious about what that would come up for, right? Because AI is really all about specificity. And it's something that I've learned from Lisa and something that I've learned from Chrissy, who are 2 amazing co conspirators that have helped me learn how to adapt AI in my life, even post erasure of artificial intelligence. And so I would definitely encourage you to try that prompt, Sam. I'm going to try to, maybe I can rewrite it again. I can only delete it. So it's just like help me adapt my life to revolutionary living, centering Black liberation. Make sure to give me a daily schedule so my time, talents, and dollars help me live a liberated lifestyle. And see what comes up, see what it says, and then adjust it. I think you just kind of got to play around with a little bit. I just would highly recommend not playing around in it for like more than an hour. because we also want to make sure that we're not taking so much from the data centers in water. And also, we know that the data centers are also being put in Black communities. And so we also want to be mindful of where we are actually using AI and I'm trying to even understand where some of the data centers are. So maybe even 15 minutes, play around with it and put that prompt in or make one up because all of this is made up. And so, yeah, let's keep watching the interview. And for those of you who don't know, we are doing a live-a-thon for the weekend. And this live-a-thon is to get you all to help us support our nonprofit collective, the Heal Your Way Forward collective, as we move towards showing up for each other and showing up for ourselves. You can go to give.socialgoodfund.org/healforward26 to give a donation, or you can become a member of our collective. And so thank you for being here and watching live or watching the replay. And I will go ahead and bring back the conversation.
It's great for things like that and to really help you get past the hard part of creating new habits or doing things, that used to be sort of the hard way. When we're all so rushed, it's like, I'm just going to go to the store and buy the same things that I always buy.
Yeah,
and this way,
this can help you put a spin to it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So that's one of my favorites. That's one of my favorites as well.
Here's a couple of things that people are sharing in the chat. This person says they missed the last minute. What form of report were you talking about? It was like a sales report for your mom?
Yeah, but any reports that you have to do at work, reports are generally structured, right? So there's different sections you have to fill out, depending on whether you're in sales or marketing or operations or whatever it is. But usually there's a prescribed template for the output. So you just need to take all those sections that's in the output of your report and say, we want to create a report for this week. And these are the sections I want you to ask me about. Ask me one at a time. And then output. And if you can upload a PDF, if you can share a PDF with redacted information that's sensitive, and say output it in the same format. It can output to Excel, it can output for Word docs, it can output in whatever format you need, and then ask it to ask you all the questions and then put together the report. Then if you need a summary, then put together the email to send, depending on where that report is going. I use it for quotes and estimates all the time. So I use Read AI as a note taker app, and they do have a free version of that. So Read AI comes into my meetings with me when people want to know about consulting or me doing a keynote or whatever. They'll come into my meetings with me, and then because I usually customize for each audience, right? So from the meeting, I then take the transcript that Read AI made, and then I put that into ChatGPT and say, write up a proposal or a statement, or and then write the email that accompanies it. Export to this and that. And something that used to take me hours and drive me crazy is just done. And then again, once your AI gets to know you, it knows what types of reports you're looking for. You can ask it to reference other chats. So sometimes I'll take a concept from one keynote and then use it in a different workshop that I'm planning and say, review our other chats and bring, the work that I've already done in those other chats forward to this one, because we don't need to reinvent the wheel. It gets fun. Yeah, it gets fun too. Once I get to know you, it'll be when I talk about something new, it'll be oh, this would work very well with your, thesis on the agentic AI for medicine. And would you like me to look for more articles? So the more you train it, the more customized it is for you.
Couple more statements and sentences. This person says that they love how the specifics you can apply to make your work more honest. That's a comment from Instagram. And then this is another comment. As a disabled autistic owner, it helps me navigate conversations with people, projects to keep exhaustion down, and then you help your team do the same. I think that's phenomenal.
It's really good. We have autism in my family as well. It's really good when you don't understand. If you get an email from someone and they're using jargon that you don't understand, it's really good to say, help me understand what this person is saying in an email. And then I've used the help me respond so many times because I can get a little spicy in my emails if somebody's, gone the wrong direction, and I use ChatGPT quite a bit to amp that spice down.
Yeah. Okay, here's the one that's coming. I knew this was going to come. I worry about the water issue and AI growing into something big and bad and not used for good. How can you tell? How can you tell how big of an issue any specific AI app is or will cause?
That is a great question. And without being like in the industry, guess what I'm going to tell you? Ask AI. Ask your favorite chatbot how much it uses. You can ask it who spreads the most misinformation. You can ask it. I mean, that's the cool thing. They're going to be honest with you. So and it's so AI computes faster. The next thing that's coming is quantum computing, right? So that's already in the mix now. And that's going to become more mainstream as well. So I will tell you that at the top, there are people like I'm in the 6G lab in Oulu, which is basically working on future technologies. And a big part of what we're working on, like a big portion of the lab, is working on like climate change and how can we be more sustainable in that capacity, especially with the technology. And we're all interdisciplinary, so especially with where technology is going. So I will tell you there are people at the top that are working on making this better, but that's definitely a question. The 500 billion that they're building the new AI center in Texas. That's doing it the way. It's going to be using energy, and they don't care. So that's definitely. At some point we need to take our business, I keep saying open AI, and at some point we're going to need to take our business elsewhere and only go with people that are environmentally responsible, and the ones who are, and then ask your AI to back that up.
Well,
in terms of like,
oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, I thought it would be fun to ask ChatGPT the question, so I'm going to screen share. And as you see, I just pasted the question in there, and I'm just going to keep it basic in case those of you who are like, I don't want to use it. And it's spitting out an answer.
There you go. Don't you love it?
Wow. So the question here, there's the water issue. I guess, Lisa, you probably could get more specific about the water, right? As it's spitting
the water. Yep. So the water is used as a cooling agent in the new buildings, and so I think that it is the most effective. This is not my area of expertise, so I don't know if it's the most efficient, but that's what most people are going with, is water as a coolant. So in these server warehouses, so data warehouses, they're just like warehouses with just server rack after server rack. So like when you see all the cords plugged in everywhere, like those are server racks. They're each, and this is the cloud. This is where all the computing goes on, and this is where everything is stored. When we say we're storing it in the cloud, it's not up in the air. It's literally in these server farms. There's some, and they usually go into rural areas where the land is cheap and the warehousing space is cheap. So there's some in Central Oregon. There's actually some in Nevada. There's some outside of Reno, and then there's one right in the middle of Las Vegas too. And they're everywhere, right? So every company has their own, but they're just warehouses just full of these racks of servers. And if you think about, like, my computer is hot right now, to the touch, it needs it's getting a little bit old, but the amount of processing power that goes into the cloud and big data is a problem, because people are saving stuff just to save it, just because they can, without, $2 more to get another couple gigs or whatever it is. And we're not being careful with what we're saving. And an easy way to think about this is like how many, we don't just take one picture anymore. We're like, oh, I got 10 just in case somebody's eyes were closed, or, whatever. And then we're not going through and getting rid of the duplicate photos in there. And then we upload, then it says your phone is full. You got to upload it to the cloud. And so we do. And that's just more and more data that's going into these warehouses. And also that's vulnerable, right? Like, as we talked about in our last talk, the cloud is vulnerable. All the warehouses are vulnerable. I mean, so that's kind of one of the things with, like, how careful do we need to be about China and TikTok and all of this? listen, we're in the wild, wild west as far as it comes to technology, and there's no such thing as security. It's kind of a joke in the industry. Like, we can be more secure, we can do things to make ourselves less vulnerable, but like, we recognize that we are operating in a space that is not inherently safe. And so we do the best we can to protect ourselves, just like driving a car. We don't say, well, we're not going to drive or fly on an airplane. There's some good examples of airplanes being dangerous, just, out of the United States this past week. And it's like, we don't say, well, we're never going to fly on an airplane again, but we want to know that safety standards are up to par. We want to know the pilot's not drunk. We want to know that, all of those things. And then we still take our chances. So same thing in cyber and using technology. We don't want to just toss it. I mean, the amount that AI is doing, and like where we're at with robotics and quantum computing and all of those things like that it's doing for people living with disabilities is amazing. I mean, people can hear again, people can speak, not to mention people being able to speak to people in different languages. I mean, we're here in Finland, in northern Finland, and it's like, I don't know how I would get by without Google Translate, where I can just talk into it and it spits Finnish out the other end. So we definitely do want to hold the tech companies accountable to be offsetting their carbon footprint. And that's going to be tough to hold tech companies accountable in the United States these days.
I agree. I'm going to post 2 more questions, you all. One is a statement. Someone says, I'm all here. Just posting, just pausing. All right, pausing just for a second. I love this comment from Sam of we can do both. I think when the internet first came around, AI is scary on a new scale. And I also don't think it's going anywhere. So I want to be knowledgeable. Absolutely. And one of the classes that we're going to be having here, I'm getting with Chrissy's going to be bringing Chrissy and hopefully Lisa, both of them will be bringing some more AI-based classes to the collective. We also are going to be working with Lisa to give a workbook to learn how to actually do some efficient prompting. We already have access to it. I just couldn't find the link to share with you all so you can get started. But Lisa Flynn is very knowledgeable in the work of AI and how to use AI. And so is Chrissy, and they're both members of the collective. And so bringing their skills in to help us demystify AI and also help us liberate ourselves from AI. And so I absolutely do believe that we can do both. Nothing should be, in my opinion, we don't want to put anything in a binary, right? We want to make space for the both and. Like, this can exist and I can modify my use of it. I don't have to become addicted to it. So it's a tool to put in our tool belts, but we know that all tools can be dangerous if we're not careful with how we use them. So thank you for this comment, Sam. I'm here all Jurassic Park. You were so being grateful so that if the AI apocalypse comes, it will save me. Just kidding.
You were one of the nice ones. Yeah.
You were one of the nice ones.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's a very fair statement to make here. I mean, one of the reasons I got into technology and have advanced my education in technology is because I was there. I had a tech startup, and I raised money out of Silicon Valley at the same time that Facebook was starting and that, Google was starting and all of that. And they weren't worried about, no, they weren't concerned about if they should. They were worried about if they could. Facebook started as a hot or not app, essentially. That Zuckerberg couldn't get any girls to talk to him was he at Harvard? I think he was at Harvard, not at Stanford. And so, it was basically like swipe left, swipe right, hot or not. And then it turned into the thing that it is now. But it operated for years and years and years, only surviving off of investor funding. Like, they didn't have a business model underneath them for years. But they just collected all the data that they could, knowing that they could be selling that. And then ultimately that became their model, along with advertising and things like that. So no, there hasn't been, the tech bros need more supervision. It shouldn't be a self-regulated industry. It is. And they just got the keys to the kingdom, basically. So I don't anticipate many changes there. the good news is on the other side, there are ethical hackers, there are hacktivists, they call it, and there are a lot of people now that like have seen behind the curtain, and we have results now. The Surgeon General released a warning that social media was not good for kids' mental health, right? And so we know that now. I know that back then. But I will tell you that in every interview I've ever seen with any of the tech bros, when asked if their children are on their app, they're like, God, no way.
No. So, and it's so, yeah. I'm glad you brought that up, because I learned when I lived in the Bay Area that they don't even let their nannies use it. Like, they don't want their kids around any screens. So that tells us a lot about how we are bought and sold as products, and they rely on our consumption of what they create.
100%. And but we vote with our time and our money, right? So we might need to create some new habits to start spending our time elsewhere. Your community is a great example of where people could spend their time rather than on Facebook or Instagram, and it's not going to cause mental health issues. Look at that, as if on cue. So that was a great point to make. Do know that there are people like me out here, and people that are really working hard on global AI safety regulations, and and that will make its way into policy and things like that. But no, they weren't thinking about if they should. And they still are not, and they won't until their incentive structure changes. And I don't see that changing in the United States in the next 4 years. It's going to go the wrong direction, and the United States is still the leader, in this space. So, but we the people have power.
We really do. We keep thinking we're powerless. But one more thing, I want to get this question before we go, Lisa. Are there ways your mobile info can make it to the cloud without you knowing? There are no dumb questions, friend.
Yeah. So, okay. One other thing: never leave your house with your Bluetooth or your car with your because hands-free driving with your Bluetooth enabled. If your Bluetooth is enabled, it makes it very easy for people to get into your phone. If they're into your phone, they can go into any of the apps that are connected to the cloud. So it's basically like any road in lets people just go and go everywhere. So so unless you're using an app, and just know that most apps are cloud-based, right? That's why they're free, because it's cheaper to run that way. So if you're using your mobile, like it can. So if you're using WhatsApp, or that's transferring through the cloud. So just make sure and ask your GPTs if you don't, what apps you're using and are they connected to the cloud. In terms of banking, it's really not safe to be on your phone or on a computer that always goes everywhere with you. Like, when you ask the experts what you should do for your banking, for your online banking, they would suggest having a computer that is only dedicated to your banking and to money matters. Do not plug that in. Do not ever go on a Wi-Fi with that computer. Do not ever take that computer out of your house, basically, and have it disconnected from the web, except for only to download the information that you need from your bank, and or to make any transactions. And otherwise keep it what we call air gapped, which just means it's not connected. There's air in between this technology and the other technology. So essentially, don't leave it online all the time. Go online and then turn it off when you're done with it.
Wow, you guys are full of questions. This is great. Like, I'm so excited. What about hearing aid users that have to have Bluetooth? Is there a way to protect them?
So I don't know. So do hearing aids, do they connect? Are they just Bluetooth themselves, or do they connect to your phone that's Bluetooth?
Mine connects to I don't have them on today, but mine connects to my phone. So it's like a Bluetooth from the hearing aid to the phone.
Yeah.
So if I'm watching a live or YouTube and say I'm watching it on my phone, it helps with me hearing the information.
Yeah. So that's a tricky one. So it sounds like you need to have your Bluetooth on when you're out and about. Make sure that your phone, Listen, most people aren't going to be targeted individually by hackers that are going to try to get into your phone. It's more likely so be careful when you're in crowded public places. Be careful when you're in airports. Be careful when you're in, at concerts or, a busy Starbucks or anything like that. So you just might, or at malls, right? Like malls are making a comeback. So just be careful when you're in crowded spaces. And you'll probably be okay. I think that the good outweighs the bad. The good potential outweighs the risk of harm for most people who wouldn't be individually targeted.
Okay, Lisa, does your website is that a good resource for people to come and maybe book a consult or coaching and learn more?
Yeah, so it's Lisa Flynn, PhDC, there it is, .com. And you can just contact me just through the contact us page. I'm actually catching all that now. Send me information. And I've got information on there about consulting, coaching, workshops, keynotes, all of that good stuff. So thank you for mentioning that, my friend. I appreciate that.
And also Lisa's going to stay tuned. We're going to keep coming live together, but there'll be a workshop coming soon. It might be 1 part, 2 parts, 3 parts. Who knows?
Yeah. Let me know what you want.
Right.
I do, but I would love to be teaching this. And I'd love to hear from the community in terms of like what catches their interest most. I was planning on doing a how to use AI for the home and then how to use AI for work safely, both of them. Kind of the two of the little things we talked about today. So yeah, I'd love to know what people are most interested in, and we'll get something started here before the end of February.
Oh, that would be great. So stay tuned, all, for the Heal Your Way Forward AI boot camp. I just made that up because it sounded cool. If you all are looking for community, there's a link to our collective. It's a monthly membership, and there's so much in there, Lisa. It's like I look in there and I'm like, this is its own social network, pretty much.
Yeah.
And Lisa's there in case, but you can't go in Lisa's DMs and ask for support. I already showed you where to go for that. It's right here. But it's where we build relationships within and across difference. So if you're looking for a deeper community, you can check us out in the collective. Lisa, thank you for your time today.
Thank you. It's always good to be with you.
Thank you. Oh, you're absolutely welcome. I'm trying to have Lisa every Sunday if possible, as long as Lisa has time. Lisa is currently finishing the PhD, and I'm about to be on that same trajectory. So enjoy us while you can.
That's right. That's right.
And then my last request is for you all to, let me grab it up my desk. Guess what came in the mail yesterday?
Was it an unboxing day? It's so exciting.
I didn't do an unboxing. I'm like kind of over that. I'm trying to be real and authentic. But
yeah, but you got to literally unbox it.
This is the paperwork copy of Heal Your Way Forward, which I'm really excited about. And it comes out March 11th. So I think I have another cool banner for you all to look at. Pre-order your paperback. And these little words right here are a quote by Robin DiAngelo. If you're a fan of Robin DiAngelo, great. If you're not, it's really not my business. So it's really cool. She says that with clarity and compassion, Maisha Tiho invites white people to come as we are, to let ourselves bear witness and be changed. So it's right here. Pre-order a copy. It's so different than the hard copy, but like you can fold it, and like there are times when I read this book where I just that was so funny. Thank you all so much, so much for watching that interview with Lisa Flynn. We have not had our AI for Liberation series quite yet. However, we are looking to have that. So I will be reaching out to Lisa and also Lisa and Chrissy to get us going in our collective to learn how to use more empowered AI. And really be a catalyst for our growth and healing as a collective. I want to go ahead and give you guys that link again to give a donation, because it is people like you who help us do our work as the collective. If you're a member of the collective, if you could do me a favor and just share the link with your friends, with your family members, because this is going to help us do our work more sustainably and hire Lisa and Chrissy and other Black and Brown women to come and help us understand how liberation works, and also understand like what is the actual work of AI and how do we, liberate AI. One of my goals for us actually as a collective is to actually have a deeper understanding of AI, of artificial intelligence, and really just have a better use for it, because it's not going anywhere. And one thing I'm reading, rereading actually, Ruha Benjamin is like my new hero. So I'm looking forward to reaching out to Ruha Benjamin. She is a Black Studies professor, but she looks at the intersections of AI. And I want to share a little bit about her first, but also let me give you guys the link for Lisa. If you want to work with Lisa, if you want to ask Lisa questions, or maybe you want to think about what does AI coaching look like with Lisa, her website is right again, it's right here in the comments. And let me just make a quick banner so you all can also see how to reach Lisa if you're interested. You can find Lisa at lisaflynnphdc.com. And I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Lisa. So thank you guys again for tuning in and being a part of our Heal Your Way Forward Live-a-thon. So this is the book, Race After Technology. And me and Chandika read it and talked about it. I believe I need to reach out to Chandika so we can actually recap. But this book is an amazing book to really understand what, as Ruha Benjamin calls, is the new Jim Code. So here it is, Race After Technology. Someone want to type that in the chat, you're welcome to. This is a really amazing book that is really helping us break down the bias in tech. And so, so her book she talks about these 4 dimensions of Jim Code, how AI is engineered for inequality. Her second chapter looks at what happens when tech developers do not attend to the social and historical context of their work, and how it explores how default discrimination grows out of the design process. The third step in her third chapter is about coded exposure. And then the fourth chapter is about technical beneficence, right? How tech products and services that offer fixes for social bias. And then this last chapter looks at practitioners, how scholars, activists, artists, and students are working to resist the challenges of the new Jim Code. And I got to be honest, chapter 5 is that chapter. Chapter 5 is amazing read. I don't have this book highlighted enough, so I'm going to be going through this book. And she has a couple of other books that I'll be going through as well. And her book, Imagination, we're going to be reading in May in the Co-Conspirators Collective. And again, you are always welcome to visit healyourwayforward.org if you're interested in learning more about our collective and or giving a one-time contribution to our collective as well. So this is Race After Technology. So behind the scenes, you might see me reading this today because I have so many possibility projects. I think it's absolutely wonderful that we understand how these tools work, while we understand how to actually not just be like, oh my gosh, it's the algorithm. Oh my gosh, the algorithm hates me. It could actually be a little bit more, let's not be so reactive, and let's actually learn how can we make this algorithm work for us? What do we dream about? What do we think about? And what will it take for us to learn how to infiltrate the system? So Sam, if it's pretty thick, but it will drive conversations for us. You see, I have bent pages because I couldn't find my bookmark. So Race After Technology, and really looking forward to, she calls it in chapter 5, retooling solidarity and reimagining justice. And I guess, I can read a little bit of it now because I'm going to go to audits and other abolitionist tools. So this is in chapter 5 on page 185. And again, welcome and thank you for watching the Heal Your Way Forward Live-a-thon. This Live-a-thon is us raising funds for our nonprofit. Excuse me, let me edit this. Our nonprofit collective, the Heal Your Way Forward Collective. And it's also inviting you in. Maybe you're looking for a membership. Maybe you're looking for people to connect with. On our website, you have 2 buttons right at the top where you will be able to either give a one-time donation and or get involved. Maybe you want to become a member. Maybe you're looking for an event. And maybe before I read, we'll take a tour of that website, and I'll go ahead and put that here as well. We love doing our live-a-thons because our live-a-thons are so much fun. Let me hide that one right there. I'll keep that right there so it's on the screen. So let's take a little tour of the website because I think that's one of the things that people are like, whoa, this is what's what. So when you are interested in giving and or let me show that here again. Here we go. Let's take a look at this website real quick. So you're watching us live. You're wondering, like, what is this about, right? So as you can tell, I'm an 80s baby. I love the 80s and the 90s. And so our website needed to be a place of like joy, something that stood out, something that felt back to the future, but moving forward in the past, something that gave the spirit of Sankofa. So if you see our new like logo-ish, you see like kind of like the back to the future symbols because we do know and we do practice the art of Sankofa, not Sankofa so we can look at our past and re-trigger our trauma, but so we can pull out lessons and move forward in the future. So it's like being past, present, and future in real time. And so when you go to our website, you can click this link. It takes you right to the live-a-thon on YouTube. You can watch the last live-a-thon. And then here's our two: become a member and donate to our mission. And it's really, really critical right now that we get as many people as possible to either become a member and or donate to our mission. It's what I'm calling right now on TikTok and social media, getting into practice, because that's one thing a lot of folks don't do in these spaces. It's either reactive and act, or it is learn and ghost. And so how do we move from the space of um, react and act to pause and practice, because you need a little bit of both. You need the integration of both to actually help, take this work forward. Another thing you can get on our website, this was the very last week, grab our liberation plan. It's a 14-day workbook. You can grab that plan, you can work through it, you can move through it, and it gives you 14 daily prompts to actually interrogate where you are on your journey. Within a week from now, this will be a donation-based workbook. Give a donation, grab that liberation plan. So the one fun thing I love about our website is that we gamified it, because my experience in the social justice industrial complex, in any industrial complex, is that it's all about playing the game. And so when you look at the website, you see the little Pac-Man here moving, and it's just like, healing shouldn't be about just getting to the next level, right? It should be built on like the belief that we can show up as our full selves. And then we move on to tired of playing the game. You scroll down as a little Game Boy. So we really wanted to make this an interactive, fun website. But let's say you're here, you don't know much about us, and you want to go, who else? Go to the About Us. Our About Us, it tells you what we are and what we believe. Like, we're just like a mindful, self-compassionate collective. We work at the intersection of neuroscience, mindfulness, and liberation. And we understand that this work is not just an idea, it is somatic. And that's something I've been talking about a lot on social media. In making a different choice, right, we also have to choose, right, something different. We have to choose a new way. And choice is not easy for everybody, but choice is possible. And so when I talk about making a different choice, I'm actually talking about you can either choose to act and react, or you can choose to become somatically aware. And so again, if you want to learn about our events and on-demand offerings, you can join Jen on Sunday for cultivating digital fortitude, holding compassion and boundaries on social media. This is a 3-hour social media workshop where Jen walks through how to use DCC as a tool to be on social media, because a lot of the conversations are leave social media, get off these apps, and we're leaving people behind when we do that. You can also come on January 11th. I'm doing mutual aid budgeting. It's a 2-hour workshop where we're going to be looking at budgeting for our mutual aid. And then we got Michelle doing a guided meditation session on January the 14th at 5 p.m. There'll be a couple of more sessions added the week of January 20th, so just stay soon. And then January 18th, we have our time budgeting from liberation, where I'll be walking people through, and we'll be collectively practicing how to actually plan our time and our schedules. And, I've had niche down your journey. I've had niche down your year. I've had niche down your activism. And I want to look at this from a different approach. And I'm grateful I can work with co-conspirators on this. What does it look like to just have one day a week where you sit down and you focus on, what do I want to do for the week ahead? Because if you can't train your brain to slow down and to get into a flow for the week, and maybe not even a plan because life changes, if you can slow yourself down to build a sustainable schedule for the week, you can learn to move in flow and keep yourself accountable to being into a ritual practice of caring for yourself and the collective. So super excited about that. And then the last Thursdays of the month, we do our White Bodies for Action. And you may have seen the live-a-thon 2 days ago where we actually did it together in practice. And so this is a complimentary event where you come and we raise funds for people in need. And these are members of our collective and members of the general public. So just want to give y'all a quick look at what our website looks at. And then finally, we have our community creators market. We are a community of creators. And so our creators market, I'm going pretty fast. I'll stop at start, Janine. Our creators market has items handmade by our creators in our community. And how this actually works is we promote our creators, and then our creators donate a portion of their sales to our collective. I like to think about how do we promote those in our collective with gifts, because it's not just about me. You know what I mean? And so I really am grateful that we're moving into this model that allows all of us to be seen for our gifts, whether they're big, small. There's so much on here, and we'll be doing a better job in the coming year to promote it. This community creators market will live on our website because we want to showcase our creators. We want to showcase their work. We want to showcase people who have supported our journey. And so, yeah, there's that 90-minute virtual creativity workshop with Tom. The hooping session is sold out with Lindsay. We got Lisa with her winter tea blends, and we have the 60-minute empathy and listening sessions with Jen. There's 20 of those sessions. And there is if you didn't see Chemo, you can go back 2 days ago and you can watch that live concert with Chemo. It was pretty cool, brought a lot of good love and energy to our collective. And so, yes, this is the work. So just removing that for a second, I want to share this comment with Katie. Thank you, Katie, for being here with us this morning. You say that you're excited to learn how to be more somatically aware of yourself. I am very grateful for that. I need to present on that for all of us in the collective. But if you can get to Zoe, will be back in February, I believe, doing embodied liberation. And she does a very great job teaching about the body, how to transmute, how to transcend, how to notice. We also have Mitzi who does that. If you can go to DCC with Mitzi, Mitzi does a very good job of moving us through that flow and noticing our bodies. I do the Sit With It Compassion, and I do DCC and Play, where it is learning how to trust that sacral chakra. Speaking of sacral chakra, let me drink some water. It's orange, sacral. Because a lot of it is learning to trust your gut. So we're going to have a lot of interesting ways that we learn this year. Anti-racism work is not just a fact-checking, crossing off fact-checking and intellectualizing. It's actually now time for us to really learn that your body holds technology, your body holds energy. All of this is energy. And if you're giving all of your energy by telling yourself that this is how I show up as a co-conspirator and convincing yourself that you're a good white person, like we're moving away from that. And I feel it, and it feels really, really good. So excited to be in it with you. What has me in it with you? Hi, Jermaine. I see you on Instagram. Hey, everybody. What has me in it with y'all is because I'm also on a deep healing journey yourself. Being deplatformed can put you through it. Being deplatformed, you lose all senses of yourself. Deplatform, be that long COVID, being deplatformed, having a stroke, having headaches every day. Now I haven't had a headache for 2 weeks. So grateful. Y'all know those headaches were debilitating because I've become more somatically aware. In my somatic practice, I want to name this for y'all, because as Black women in Black bodies, like there is a legacy of we just keep going. We just keep burning out. And I just can't move that way anymore. Having that stroke really clicked for me. So I go to acupuncture once a week. That's part of my healing plan. Acupuncture once a week. I do EMDR therapy, acupuncture, EMDR. What else are we doing? Family therapy, movement. I have 2 amazing movement folks who are making sure that I'm moving my body. Even after this, I need to jump on my treadmill and make it do what it do. So I do movement, EMDR, breath work. So all of these different tools to get myself feeling in my body. And one of the things that I've recently learned is just like how disassociated I've been in the work, that I was just working to work because that's just what you do, right? You just work to work, and it just wasn't sustainable. And it just wasn't healthy just to be continuously continuing to work as if that's all I'm supposed to do is just to be a robot. And that's just not sustainable. And so, yes, this work is shifting, it's changing, it's growing, and we'll all heal together. I do want to shout out someone who just gave a donation of, I believe, $100. So we're at $2,785. My goal is to try to close out the weekend at $3,500, if not more. And so I'll be live today. I'll be live tomorrow. Hopefully, someone will take over and do lives Monday. And then I'll be back every single day because we want to hit our goal. I want to be able to have insurance for myself and members of our team, pay a really salary. So this big goal helps us like really, really, really do the work. So if you're someone who works a 9 to 5 and you might be interested in possibly doing a matching donation. So if you do become a member, a couple of things I found out about companies. Some companies will take your membership and they will pay for it as employee wellness or employee development. You can use it for that. Some organizations will pay for the membership and some organizations will match it. And so if you are considering becoming a member, if you are in consideration, just go ahead and visit healyourwayforward.org because it's humans like you that make all of this possible. Shout out to Dee for our new motto, humans like you. All right, so I am going to get us prepared. I was going to read, but I'm going to take a bit of a break. And while I take a bit of a break, I'm going to pull up another video for us to watch together as human beings in practice. And most of these are interviews that I did at the top of the year. I believe we've watched the one with Inoy. And so now we might even go way, way back to OG Check Your Privilege and really look at how did this work all begin. Let's see if I can find that playlist. And we're going to start with Valerie. Valerie was one of the first co-conspirators. She was the first member of the lounge. She helped actually build out the idea of what exists today. What exists today exists because of sitting down with Valerie and getting very, very clear on what this was. Now, did we have the foundation of what it would look like and how it would operate? No, it has taken us 7-8 years for us to get to the place where we now can build that infrastructure where we're now not moving out of reaction, but we're moving out of mindfulness, somatics, and response. So I want to hope that you all enjoy this very first conversation that I held with white women on their relationship with privilege. And so I'm going to go ahead and get this going for us, and I'll be back. Welcome again to the Check Your Privilege Talks with me, Maisha T. These conversations are open dialogue around the importance of moving beyond being a white ally, but working towards being a co-conspirator, centering Black women in the fight against patriarchy. However, we have to understand that the best way for white women to help win this fight is to acknowledge their privilege, work around it, and begin centering Black, Indigenous, and women of color in the feminist movement. So I want to introduce my guest today, Valerie Moore, who's a women's leadership coach. Valerie, why don't you tell the audience about what you do?
Well, I work with change makers who are wanting to really stand in their power, that they're trying to balance the masculine energy as bring their feminine side into it and be able to really work through some of the internalized oppression that they're carrying.
Oh, wow, that's heavy. So do you work with many women of color?
I have a couple of clients that are women of color, but I did a lot of work in corporate for many years, and there just wasn't that many women of color there, especially in executive level positions. So I worked predominantly with white men for many, many years.
Oh,
yeah.
Interesting.
So I'm making that shift and trying to create spaces as well as relationships to work with more women of color.
Awesome. Okay. So this question, kind of off the cuff, is when did you know that if you identify as a feminist, when did you know that you were a feminist? Like, what happened to spark that?
Yeah. So I went to UC Santa Cruz for college, and it was my freshman year, and I took an intro to feminism class. And that was the first time that I had ever been in a community of women in a way that felt very empowered, that felt like they were not only challenging the outside world, right, in terms of the things that we confront, but also challenging some of the stuff we carry inside. And it felt like a sisterhood. So that was the first time where I really understood that some of the challenges that I have faced individually, other women had faced, and we faced collectively.
Awesome. And so while you had that understanding of that introduction of feminism, did you notice anything in particular with women of color being a part of the feminism movement?
Yeah, absolutely. So I went on after that class to get a women's studies degree. And throughout my classes, you didn't know that about me, huh?
What?
Yeah, so I did American politics and women's studies. And throughout that process, not only in terms of the text that we were reading, but the women that were present in the program, this was a big part of the conversation because the early feminist movement really boxed out women of color, right? Historically, not only, the Susan B. Anthony, like suffrage movement, and then as well, even in the 60s, it was often white women saying, oh, well, hold on, talking about feminism and talking about all women, right? They were really only talking about themselves. When women of color would step in and say, but what about our experience, or what about this? It was often treated as like, well, yeah, we have to do this first and then we'll get to that. And so those conversations came up over and over again, not only in theory, but in practice.
So do you see that still happening now? Do you still see?
Yeah.
Oh, I have to ask.
Okay. Yeah, I know. Well, and I have to be honest, and I have to own it. So I went to school, I'm 46 now. I went to college, and I came out of college and out of this community where we talked about these things. We talked about race. We talked about homophobia. We talked about sexism all the time, right? And then we did critical analysis of it. And then I left and went into the working world and completely lost my, how do I describe it? I lost my center on it, right? I was focused on trying to build my career, right? And like I mentioned, I started working and doing executive coaching and really kind of lost the ability to have that conversation. I lost the courage. So for many years, I fell back into my privilege. And it was probably only a couple of years ago where all of a sudden I woke up to the fact of like, wow, I'm totally out of alignment. I can't continue like this. This is, and that remembering helped me to kind of come back to a grounded place with the fact that I have to be talking about it. I have to be having these conversations. I have to be in sisterhood again. And I have to check my privilege in a way that is not just when I want to or when it's convenient, but it has to be always, right? And this is not just for some period of time until I get it, right? that you never arrive, right? This just has to be my new way of being in the world.
Idea, I think, Valerie, that some white women think that, oh, I've done my work, I'm done. And it's not done because it's constantly going to show up in your life every single day, right?
Yes, and we're living in it in a way where it's not behind us. I think that for a long time, we wanted to believe, right, that it wasn't an issue. And for white women specifically, since we're not living with it day in and day out,
right,
it's easy. If you're not very actively, consciously, intentionally working to check your privilege, to be anti-racist, to see it, you can be comfortable.
Yeah,
and that's what I feel like I did for many years. Is I was caught up in the fact that I could step away from it, and that realization, and the fact that that was, I understood that's not going to get it done, right? If I want there to be change, if I want there to be something different out in the world, which I do, then I don't get to take breaks, because women of color don't get to take breaks.
Absolutely, you're damn right we don't.
Yeah.
But I do also appreciate the idea that you actually recall, like you.
Oh. Sorry. 1 second. You're gonna have to
That's okay. That was Val's dog. I call her Lassie. That is not her name.
Lucy.
But she looks like Lassie. Don't call her Lassie. I think only I can do that in my head. But yeah, like you kind of realized that you were living in privilege, and it sounds like you're comfortable getting uncomfortable, which takes us to this idea around allyship. And for those of you who don't know, allyship is this process that involves a lot of listening. It's acting in solidarity to the fact that you know something. So when we talk about white allyship, it's actually a white ally acknowledging the limits of their knowledge about a person's experience, but they don't use that as a reason not to think or act. Typically, white allies don't remain silent, but they confront racism as it comes up daily. So this was a definition that I got from a resource that I'll share in my Check Your Privilege Ally Guide. But Valerie, my question to you is, what does being an ally look like to you?
There's a number of pieces to it that have been evolving, and I assume will continue to evolve. But part of it's the inner work, right? Of being honest about the places and spaces where, even if I didn't intend, right, that I've been actually operating out of privilege and doing harm, right, to women of color, people of color, and that inner work is not comfortable. So this idea of being willing to not be comfortable, I think, is an important piece of this, because we live in a society, and I am, a white person, and in this society is built on white supremacy.
Right.
And it's not comfortable for me to say I'm a racist, because I want to be a good person, right? That's not what I want. That's part of white supremacy, though, this idea of perfecting things or being good, right? And this idea that we're always striving to do that. And for me, it doesn't matter what I intend, right? I'm operating and I'm benefiting from a system that marginalizes brown and black bodies, and that if I don't speak up, if I don't take action, if I don't do things, then I'm complicit in that.
So it sounds,
and that's, yeah, keep going.
Yeah, so it sounds like for you, an ally looks like someone who shows up in this system that's created for you to succeed, but for someone like me to fail.
And to use my body, to use my voice, to use all of my talents. So I had an episode back at the beginning of the year where I was out looking at the full lunar eclipse, right?
Right.
And I got the cops were called on me by one of my neighbors, and they came as if there was, I was a homeless person, is basically what they thought. I had a blanket wrapped around me and stuff. And that was the first moment, actually, that I really understood privilege in a way, because they were very forceful. And I didn't understand really what was going on until I got back into my house after the whole incident was over. And I sat there and I thought to myself, what the fuck just happened, right? And in that moment, the next thought to myself was, oh shit, how would that have gone down if my neighbor 2 doors down, who's African-American, if that was him out there, right? And all of a sudden, it like hit me like a ton of bricks. Not only did my privilege get checked, but the fact that, like, fuck, somebody else that probably wouldn't have turned out quite the same way, right? And so I wrote about it. I wrote a blog post about it, that, not only shared my experience, but basically posited that question. And I continue to try to do those things just to get people talking and thinking and understanding from my perspective and my experience, sharing that as a way to, just, especially because people of color already know this. Like, I'm not really talking to them because they're like, yeah. But it's for, other, white women specifically. But, even talking to my husband about it, right? That was something that, and my kids, right? Not having it be just my own thing, but having it be something that, as, my family, that this is something we talk about. So that's one way. The other way is that I do events, right? I do events for women in anger release. And this is a topic that is really, it's got a lot of charge to it for people. And
just to circle back real quick, Valerie, is this the work that you're doing to unpack your privilege? Or is this kind of still you talking about what an ally looks like to you?
So it was, part of it was unpacking internalized depression. And it started out originally understanding it from the context of sexism, right? Because there's a lot of commonality when we come into circle together as women and we share the things, what our relationship with anger, what we're angry about. We not only are able to feel seen and heard, but then we're able to appreciate the fact that we're not alone, that this shit is going on and that there's a collective piece of this. Right. But what I realized in doing this was that, the term intersectionality, right? This idea of like different women's lives have different places where sexism intersects with different parts of their identity, being a woman and other things. And so through this process, I've been able to listen to other, women and what their experience has been, and also appreciate that this is a lot. Expressing your anger is so loaded, not just for white women, right? But for women of color, this stereotype of the angry Black woman is real, right? Like, this is something that, I want to be able to hold space for people in a way where they feel seen and heard and invited to participate in a way where they're not re-traumatized. So this is my ongoing work, is to try to understand how to create those spaces and take responsibility if I'm the one that's creating the space to make it so that it's an anti-oppression space, an anti-racist space.
Right.
And that's an ongoing process for me of learning.
My other question to that would be, how would you hold that space? I don't know if this is a challenge, but how can you hold that space and center women of color in
exactly.
that space?
Exactly. And that is, I think, when I look at myself, I've never been a person that has not seen race, like the whole colorblind thing. That's not been, my thing. But what my biggest, when I look at myself, and we've had this experience, we both volunteered for Sidewalk Talk, and we've certainly had this experience. But that's my biggest challenge, is that I'm used to my privilege of taking space. And that's the part that is so ingrained in me that I don't always even realize I'm doing it until after the fact. So raising my level of awareness and then actively, like purposefully making that part of the agenda is how I have to operate, because right. that to me feels like that gives women of color some room to move, right? To actually like drop in. But then also it gives me an opportunity to listen, so I can really appreciate at a deeper level what that experience is for women of color, but also what their needs are, right? How to be a co-conspirator, right? Like, what are the things that are the next level shit that needs to be addressed, that I may not be fully conscious or aware of right now, but I'm hoping by being in community with women of color and listening, that I'll understand what that path it will unfold.
Right. Okay. Well, let's move into white women violence and weapons of whiteness. Oof. For those of you who don't know, Catrice M. Jackson has coined the phrase white women violence, which is the emotional, verbal, and energetic weapons launched at you when you, as a woman of color, speak your truth. This can also show up as white tears, white guilt, you name it. If you've experienced it, for example, say you work at a tech company and your supervisor asks you to do something and you just say to your supervisor, I've done this already. Can you ask Jim to do it? And then your supervisor goes, oh, I need to ask Jim to do it. I mean, you work for me. And then you just go, okay, I'll do it. And then next thing you know, you're called in by HR because your supervisor feels that you violated their trust by asking them to ask someone else to do it. Like that's a form of white women violence or weapons of whiteness. It's kind of a form of abuse, right? So Valerie, have you used your whiteness as a weapon against women of color that you can think of, that you know of?
I mean, that's the inner work, right? And I have to say, yes, not to discount the times that, for example, I have used the space, right? Taken up all the space when I have received feedback, right? Not always kind of checking myself in terms of what my reaction is. I think that, again, there's this feeling of wanting to get it right. Like for white women who are consider themselves conscious, right? Who want to do good in the world. Right. We put this pressure on ourselves to perfect it again, right? This idea of we've got to get it right. And I think we have to like just be willing to like own the fact that, yeah, we may fuck up and not try to, right? But at the same time, like be willing to just listen and receive the feedback and apologize, right? For whatever that was, right? Where that you received that feedback, whether you intended it or not, right? Impact matters. And then not to expect that women of color are going to have to read us in or fix it, or that we do the work and sit with it to understand how are we going to make a shift, right? What, like, really own it, and that's tough. Some days it's it's hard to see the path, but just being willing to be patient and understand that this is not. Like you're not going to earn a merit badge on this one, right? Like that's not what we're, that you never get to have the ally pin, right? Like, even
like the safety pin.
I mean, yeah. I mean, that you have to basically, you have to earn it every day, right? In every moment. And that it's not something, even to be quite honest, coming to this realization really recently that I don't get to call myself an ally. I can work towards allyship, but it's actually women of color, who decide, right? Trying to be present for what that journey is going to look like, because it's not ever going to end.
Yep.
It's going to be an ongoing thing. So, the thing for me in terms of white weapons and violence is like that pressure on ourselves can lead to tears, and the tears are not helpful. So my big piece of advice, what I try to do for myself is just sit there, and it may be uncomfortable, but just get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Right, because that's what this process is all about. And I guess I want to ask, have you ever seen a white woman violate a black woman? And did you do anything about it?
That's a good question. Let's see.
Have you ever felt like, in your knowing of what white women violence is now, that you saw something happen with a woman of color and you kind of just went to that white woman and was like, hey, that's not okay?
Right. So the times where I've seen it is typically when a woman of color's experience is being dismissed or minimized. And so what I've done in those situations is try to ask for them to listen, right? Like, hey, let's really hear what she's saying, right? Because often white women will just be like, oh, well, that's not really, they'll make excuses, right? Oh, that's not really what they meant, or da 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 da. You know, it's oh, I hate the one, you know, well, why do you have to make it about race, right? Like, you know, they always want to think about it outside the context of race. And so I've tried to step in and facilitate and say, well, you know, let's hear her out, number one, right? And validate and listen for what her experience is. And then let's talk about it, because race is a part of what's going on. So just trying to insert myself into the conversation. But to be quite honest, I've seen a lot more, and I feel like I've engaged a lot more when women of color are not present, where shit's being said, you know, that's, you know, got that white supremacist vibe, right? When women of color are not present. And that's when, back in the day, I didn't speak up, right? I would just be silent. And those are the places where I feel like I'm much more present around needing to use my voice in those situations.
Absolutely. And, you know, because of this whole idea of white women violence and, you know, white guilt, white tears, Black women, we've decided, women of color, that we're not going to emotionally labor for you all anymore. A lot of Black women want to just throw Becky away. And, you know, that's the idea of white woman violence. I coined the term Becky because it's just like, at the end of the day, you go home, you're stressed out, you're just like, God damn it, Becky. But I'm thinking on this idea when I hear people say, let's just throw Becky away. And I'm like, yeah, but that's kind of pushing that patriarchic message that you don't need anybody. And you know, we're not meant to be in connection regardless of how hard it is to work through racial issues.
Yeah.
And so I personally think that the throwaway culture in America influences relationship building between
absolutely.
women. And I personally believe it stemmed from patriarchy.
Mm-hmm.
So in your opinion, like, how do we break the cycle of throwing each other away and really healing to like form a center of trust between the various races?
Absolutely. This concept of throwing people away, the first time I heard that term, I was on a call where somebody was talking about restorative justice. Mm-hmm. And it was an interesting concept. And to be quite honest, it's one that I'm only starting to get familiar with and unpack as a way to be able to kind of counteract this. But what they were talking about was this idea of community agreements, right? And that everybody, like when you're in community with somebody, that we bought in to the that you buy into some like ground rules, right? Some common things, and you get it out and you talk about it and you lay that groundwork up front. And I think to have it really up front in whatever that space is, to have it discussed and brought up and centered, right? Mm-hmm. And built into the process, I think gives hopefully some ability to then, when something has happened, come back in a way that can hopefully foster learning and growth and development. And I don't think that women of color always need to forgive and forget, right? Like that, I don't think that's realistic. Just like, anyone who's been harmed, like it's up to them to figure out what's right for them, right? In that situation, how they're feeling. But I do agree with you that we have to get better at being able to have difficult conversations in a way that aren't re-traumatizing, and to have built into our structures a way to be able to navigate and work through these and have like a common understanding that everybody's operating from. Because I think that the fact that that's why I'm happy that you're having these kinds of discussions, is because I think that different people, we're all at different places of our appreciation of our journey. So when you're creating spaces, you're operating in spaces or relationships, having sort of like a relationship meeting, right? That talks about, okay, these types of things, like this is very real, and how we're going to deal with this.
So it's almost like restorative repair, right?
Yeah.
Where it's from, right? We're spaces where, like you're saying, we can come together through listening and dialogue to really repair these relationships with one another.
And
the expectation of women of color doing all the work.
Exactly. And even the women of color, like that they need to be able to ask for what they need, right? And it might be a space. It might say, I can't engage right now or ever again. And that's okay, right? That it's not, I think that's sometimes where white women like clutch their pearls, is because it's the idea of like, you're throwing me away, right? Like, you know, so it's like, yeah, guess what? That might be part of what this is. And you need to sit with that and appreciate what that feels like. So I think there's room for both. There's room for people needing, you know, women of color needed to take care of themselves and saying, I can't do it. I'm not going to do it anymore. And I think there is space for when there are communities and who are doing the work to set it up so that there's spaces for people to come together and work through it. That structure, building those structures and getting those in place.
Yeah. My question to that is, well, what happens when, I know that was just an example,
Yeah.
Says, I can't do this right now, and then Becky gets violent, and when a Black woman disengages,
yeah,
that means, and this is from a personal experience, that there's like a mental health concern when I'm just disengaging. You feel me? Like,
absolutely.
Layers to it.
Well, and that's where I think it's really easy to fall back into the defaults. And I agree with you that the throwaway culture and a lot of this also intersects with the patriarchy, right? And so this idea of undermining the credibility of people using mental health, you know, emergencies or mental health as sort of the umbrella for like, oh, you know, well, she's just, you know, that's just, you know, kind of disregarding it because, you know, there's some history of mental health. I mean, to be quite honest, I don't know how you wouldn't be depressed in this, you know, society right now, right? And the things that are going on, if it doesn't make you depressed and feel like you want to pull your hair out and be angry all the time, you're not awake, right? You're not alive. You're not feeling it. I mean, so part of it is learning how to be with those emotions. But that, I think what I heard you say is like, hey, what happens when I set the boundary as a woman of color? Right. And the white woman basically blows right past it, right? Blows through it and continues their crusade for their own like defending their honor, and I think is what that, you know, ends up showing up as. And I think that that's where white allies, right, can get off the fucking fence and step in and be able to play a role, right? And I think that's also where there's some learning about being in community together. Is as a white woman, I don't want to jump in too fast, because as a woman of color, you're used to dealing with this shit. I want to take your lead, but at the same time, I don't want you to feel like the fatigue aspect of having to deal with this all the time is real. And so I don't want you to feel like you're out there all alone. Exactly. And it's like, and so having these discussions around what, on a personal level, like you and I, we're friends, like what would feel supportive for you in situations like that, understanding so that, I can take your lead and then, move into action to be a buffer or to be another part of the chorus, right? Like, to harmonize your message and amplify it.
Right. So I see the importance of these communal safe conversations around support.
Oh, yeah.
Like really getting what we need as women of color.
Yeah. And being able to just like talk about it up front, that this is real? And we're probably going to bump into this. How are we going to be thoughtful about it so that we're not, again, re-traumatizing and continuing to inflict harm? Because mean, definitely there are people out there that is their intention, right? They consciously
Do it.
you know, doing it. But it doesn't matter if you're conscious of it or not, if you're intending to or not.
You still have to be careful. You still need to tread lightly. You still need to understand the power of your privilege.
Absolutely. And that is an ongoing thing. Like one day I may be really like grounded and in that understanding. And who knows, it may be me, right? One day. I don't want it to be. That's not what it is. But you and I having being able to talk about what our relationship means, how we're going to, support one another on this journey of, solidarity, basically, is my vision, right? That's what you're, I think, as well. You don't want to throw away, because we all need to come together to be able to make a difference in this world.
Yeah. Especially in this fight against white supremacy and the institutionalized systems. I mean, I think I was telling another speaker the other day, like, I have a nonprofit project, so I don't want to throw Becky away, because Becky has not Becky, sorry, not you, but
yeah,
you might have the experience of writing grants that can get responded to faster than I myself would, or someone else on my team would, as a woman of color. So it kind of goes into the idea of, well, let's move away from allyship and more into being co-conspirators. And that first step of being a co-conspirator is healing that traumatic racism, that traumatic experience, and just moving towards working together and making deeper impacts.
So the conspiratorship is the active engagement and crafting a plan and executing that plan in a way where we're working together, taking concrete steps to chip away at it.
Yep. All at the same time, where we're doing it together, but women of color are still the face of it, and women of color are still leading it, and women of color are centered in that.
Yes, absolutely. And that, for white women, I think that is going to take some practice around taking a step back and being okay with not always having to, be the one up there, right? Like, be the one that all the attention is on them. Because I think in a lot of ways, that's what we're used to, right? And it has to be a conscious different. Like, you have to consciously say, no, actually, I don't need to be the one talking right now, right? I don't need to be the facilitator of this. Actually, I think, a woman of color facilitator is actually going to be able to make a difference and have an impact that I would not be able to.
Right. Absolutely.
Or this panel, it's it would be nice to be on this, conference panel. But actually, there's not that many women of color faces. We talked about this at Wisdom, right?
I keep talking about this in these interviews.
I mean, it's real. It happens a lot where you look, and as a white person, I look around and there's not that many people of color, right?
Right.
Let alone women of color.
Or if there are people of color, women of color, and let's say they're the speaker, and this was my experience at Wisdom, it's almost like goddess worship. And or white people see it, they're just like, it's the death stare. I call it the white death stare. And you're just like, does this mean I'm welcome, or does this mean you've never seen a Black person before?
Right. And it's basically the cognitive dissonance, right? That you're seeing projected onto their face, where they're just like, I'm not sure what's going on here. Wait a minute. And that's the internalized racism, right? That's the internalized shit that they might not even be conscious of.
Yeah.
But there's something there, right? And that is not there for white people, right? Like when they're looking at another white person.
Right.
So there's a lot to unpack. I mean, this is in our entire lives, and it continues.
It does not stop.
It does not stop.
But we're getting close to time. So I want to ask you a couple questions before we close. What advice are you willing to give women of color? Whoa, not women of color, white women.
No.
We are not. No. That would be
No.
But what advice or experience are you willing to give white women to check their privilege? And what ideas do you have about how they can center women of color in their life or in their business?
Right. So definitely educating yourself, right? Like, and this is not about like, go ask a person of color that you know what you should be reading, right? Like, you know, like just go, that's what Google's for. Like, Jesus Christ, like excuse me. There's lots of books out there. And a friend of mine just recently posted on Facebook, like, hey, what are some, you know, recommendations for books around white supremacy and white fragility, right? And a lot of people like threw out suggestions. And so just educating ourselves is the first step, because it needs to be written by a person of color. Number one, also, is like what you're reading, you know, it needs to be from that centered position. And then once you're actually reading it and trying to process it, I've found that I have to just sit with it, right? And like slow my roll, because there's this sense of wanting to consume this stuff in a way where like, okay, I've arrived. I've read all the books. Check. You know, I'm covered. And the real rubber hits the road when you're trying to be present for this stuff in your day in, day out reality. I called out somebody, a white woman, about something that she said, and I kind of jumped the gun. And the other woman of color who was present with me said, you know, thanks, but, you know, I've got this, right? And so there's this eagerness sometimes. And I think sometimes we just have to sit with it. It's not about othering. It's not like about other white people. Like, just take it in that, like, it's in all of us. And our own internal work, I think, is the first place to start. And then in terms of centering women of color, you know, notice the spaces that you're in. Notice the relationships that you have. Notice the people that you're reading or the media that you're consuming, and you know, try to branch out, right? Like, try to put yourself in situations where you're the only white face, you know, and you know, just listen and just be present and connect and be willing to be uncomfortable.
I think that's good. I think also when you put yourself in these non-white spaces, be okay with sitting in the back.
Yes.
And be okay with not feeling the need to engage or overtake or project your ideas.
Yes.
That's what
just be present, right? Just be patient and present, and just quiet and listen. And like you said, let the women of color take the lead. So that's what I'm personally working on, right? Those are the two things that I'm working on right now. Being in community with women of color, being you know, open and receptive to deepening my appreciation for white fragility, white supremacy, how it shows up in institutions and structures, what are things I can do, and then where you know, where it seems like I can make a difference, like, you know, stepping in and taking action.
I love that, Valerie. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your insight, and for educating white women on how they can check your privilege.
Mm-hmm.
Before you guys sign out, I want you to go ahead and look at the Check Your Privilege Co-Conspirator Workbook. It comes with a series of questions and prompts that make sure you're centering women of color in your life. And Valerie, where can they find you if they need to reach you?
So they can reach me. My website is valeriemoore.com, VALERIEMOORE.com. So thank you so much for inviting me to participate, and just for being, you know, in community. I really, I love you.
Love you too. Thanks, guys, for watching. Bye. I pulled a card for her and I read it online. Hi, guys. Welcome to the Check Your Privilege Talk, Ally Talks with me, Maisha T. These conversations are an open dialogue around the importance of moving beyond being a white ally, but working more towards being a co-conspirator, centering women of color against and the fight against patriarchy. Back online now. But the best way to win the fight is for white women allies to acknowledge their own privilege. All right, y'all. I hope that you enjoyed that video with Valerie. I hope that you learned something about yourself, and I hope that it was enlightening. So now's the part of the conversation where I kind of just say thank you guys so much for all your donations and supporting the work of Heal Your Way Forward as we're growing, shifting, and changing. We are, let's just do a fundraiser check. We are at $2,835. Thank you for your most recent donation. So super grateful for you all. That just jumped up another $100 since we started. The goal for the weekend is to get up to $3,500. And that can happen if people give their donations or become an active member of the collective. For those of you who are like, well, what is the collective and what does my membership include? Let me go ahead and pull up this cool infographic so that we can kind of go over what your membership does include in the Heal Your Way Forward collective. Let me just stop the screen share and pop this up for you as that reminder so that you can also have an understanding of what we do and what your membership includes. We've been doing this work together for the last 8 years, and this is how we've always done our memberships. So your membership includes access to the community. You have regular community events, not just by me, but by all members of our community. And those events, see, there we go. Those events are like book clubs, movie nights, study group sessions, grief circles, art and dance parties. There's body doubling if someone's having a hard time. We have shared experience meetups. So we have experiences for members of our Jewish community, our Black community meetup, disabilities, parents, educators. There's a live room for connection. Anytime you want to connect live, we just check in. Hey, can you go live? We go live. And then we have engagement feeds. We have the all member engagement feed, and we have engagement feeds for body of cultures, your learnings, your liberation or anti-racism or whatever word you use. You get to hang out with me for Sunday sessions. On the first Sundays, I do an anti-racism focused teaching. The second Sundays, I do a sit with it meditation and reflection. The third Sundays, we do direct compassion, communication, and play. And on the fourth Sundays, I do our book club. So I hang out in the collective on Sundays. Unless my schedule changes, I will have someone, a teacher, show up and kind of be my like substitute. But you'll also get regular direct compassion communication with Jen or Mitzi, meditation with Michelle. Also a healing codependency group with Erica Wright is also part of your membership. You get access to over 8 years of resources, articles, books, documentaries. You'll get exclusive content. So like we've watched some of these videos today. So you'll get some exclusive content from some of my older trainings. You'll get community care team support and scholarships. We never turn people away for their inability to pay. And this is why it was super important for us to become a fiscally sponsored project, because we want to be able to write our end of year report for 2026 and show how many people have been impacted just by joining it and not having access to pay for that membership fee. And some of you are probably like, well, it's only $44 a month. Not everybody has $44 a month. You know what I mean? And so we want to make sure that we keep our membership as accessible as possible. When I say bodies of culture who are part of Heal Your Way Forward, I mean Black, Indigenous, Southeast Asian, South Asian, Swana, Latin. We have so many members in bodies of culture. We gather together once a week. We're shifting to just connect and just really talk about our journeys and become just more connected as bodies of culture in a system of oppression. And so that's all that's included in your membership. If you go to healyurwayforward.org, you can join and get all of these benefits for $44 a month. Also reminding you that your membership is a tax deductible donation. And so you can absolutely get your donation matched by your employer. You can get your donation as a form of care. So some people see this collective as employee wellness, and they take their stipend and they use it towards their membership. And so there are so many opportunities for us to engage in the work of liberation, somatically embodied, and really remembering the neuroscience of liberation. And that neuroscience tells us that anybody can change. Neuroplasticity is our brain's ability to change. And so what people in all bodies need to remember is that healing is a practice of knowing that you can change and not sitting in the patterns of your past, worried about anything else. So let's go ahead and show you all real quick where we are with our fundraiser. We are at 6% of our $50,000 goal, and we're going live every day until we hit this goal. It might be a 1 hour live twice a day, who knows? But thank you so much for your generous giving. It is humans like you who make the work of Heal Your Way Forward available for all. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to look at another interview with Abby Cajola. Abby Cajola was also one of our first co-conspirators. And so these interviews were the interviews that kicked off Check Your Privilege. Check Your Privilege, for those of you who don't know, was started from a rupture with a friend, and that rupture with a friend led to therapy, and that was a whole situation. And I said to myself, I'm not going to throw white women away. I'm going to actually ask them and get curious about checking their privilege. And I sat with Valerie, the last interview we just watched, and we said, well, what is Check Your Privilege going to book? And I said it was going to be a book, a community, a podcast, and a book, community, a podcast, and there's one in coaching. And in the last 6 years, all of that has manifested to a book, a collective coaching, etc. And now we have evolved to Heal Your Way Forward. So I want to say thank you actually to Meta for the evolution of our work. I do have hope and belief that we will get that account back one day, because Check Your Privilege is always a part of the evolution of Heal Your Way Forward. It is the foundation of the co-conspirators' journey. So we can't erase Check Your Privilege, but we can integrate now somatically with Heal Your Way Forward. And so I always usually say that I would love for people in white bodies to check their privilege, live into their work, lean into the discomfort to heal your way forward so you can break your addiction to whiteness. That's an add-on. All right, y'all. So we're going to watch this interview for the next 30 minutes, and I'll come back and get ready to conclude us for this first half. And I'll be back later this evening for Fundraising After Dark. So thank you all so much for watching, whether you're on Instagram, Substack, YouTube, the Instagram, Substack, YouTube, LinkedIn. Thank you so much for being a part of our practice of just raising funds and having a fresh new start for the year. So here is Abby. Let's get this going for you all, and I'll be back. See if this is... Oh.
Just, doing my, I feel like I have an interesting relationship with feminism, because I think that there were a lot of really strong feminist forces in my family and education. Mm-hmm. And for some reason, I, almost you kind of have to rebel against things sometimes. And so I kind of was a little bit shy or hesitant to really say I'm a feminist, as a teenager and young adult, mm-hmm. because I associated it with a lot of male bashing and hatred. But I would say, the way that I define my own feminism is, first of all, not, letting anyone else treat me in a way that I don't want to be treated. And then also sticking up for other women and saying something, when situations are happening or I hear about them. And then also just, doing my research and reading as much as I can and looking at history and, trying to be aware of what's happened in the past so that we don't repeat it.
That's awesome. Do you think in your work as a feminist, that the voices of women of color have been silenced in the movement?
I feel that way. Yeah. I mean, I think that, that I've had to look and listen harder to kind of hear. And I understand that is, part of my privilege, that I've just been going along thinking about feminism and not seeing or hearing a lot of, women of color and voices of color being included. And I want to see and hear more. And I realize I need to go out of my way and find those voices, because they're there. There's a lot, Yeah.
And trying to find those voices, that's super important and part of the whole inclusivity process of it. And mm-hmm. That's actually part of allyship. So for you, what does an ally look like? What does that look and feel like to be an ally to women of color?
Yeah. Well, I think I'm learning more every day. But right now, for me, it looks like being in the world and, looking out for, people that I can connect with and that are open to talking to me, and, ways that I can be kind of in a role of like listening and trying to understand and observing the situation. And then also just, doing my own research and my own reading and paying attention to everything that's written, like, hey, white people, this is what you can do, or this is what you don't do. It's like, okay, tell me, yes, without like trying to, have a few Black friends that I'm like, okay, tell me everything, because I understand how exhausting that is. And I don't want to be a drain on the system. So educating myself as much as possible. And then also like looking for ways to have to only participate in something if if there's people of color participating too, like all voices being represented, and noticing like whose voice isn't being heard here.
Mm-hmm. Would you be interested in participating in an event if it was led by Black feminists? And that
Yes.
Woo. Yay.
I sure would.
You started to talk a little bit about the work that you're doing, because we both know allyship does require work.
Mm-hmm.
And that work, do you think the work of being an ally and unpacking your own privilege is ever done? Or do you see it as something that you just got to keep working on over time?
Yeah, I can't imagine it ever being done for me, because I think that it's only been recently that I have began to have the understanding of my own participation in racism, like my own silence, and how I think that even just when you asked me to do this and I started doing some research about, you sent me a video about the woman that wrote the Becky Code, and I don't think I really got it about how I wasn't really able to see or own my own violent actions. Wow. So I think that's been one really powerful outcome of, even before we started having this conversation, I feel like I was really kind of able to understand something big that I had known about. I had kind of felt it, like something like back here that you're like aware of, but you are like, can't quite get it. But I think that like I'm just really starting to get it.
That's awesome. Thank you for your honesty. I appreciate that. It takes a lot to be vulnerable and like really own your shit, for a better word, like on camera.
Yeah, it stinks.
Ooh, Band-Aid, no Band-Aids. And I appreciate it too, because I recently had a conversation with another white woman who basically said that her work is done. And I'm sitting here like, okay, your work is done. I guess we're just not that, we don't have that kind of relationship that I thought, because the work is never done in this journey of unpacking privilege and patriarchy. But you also stated about your own like violence as a white woman. And for those of you who are watching or listening and you don't know, there's a few articles that I'll share in the resources around how white women use their tears as a form of violence against Black women. But Catrice M. Jackson, who wrote the Becky Code, calls weapons of whiteness emotional, verbal, and interjected weapons launched at you when speaking your truth. And I've experienced this all of my life, of course, but I could never put words to it until recently. I had my own experience, Abby, with this type of violence, where I actually had to go deep and face my own internalized racism I had towards myself, and do some deep, deep soul work. And what I'm finding is that I was really traumatized by that experience. And I've been living in this trauma of dealing with white women violence. And the current conversation among Black, Indigenous women of color is that we're not safe, we don't feel safe, and we're just gonna stay away from Becky and throw them away because they're violent against us and it's not okay, right? Yeah. So in your understanding of white women violence, have you used your whiteness as a weapon against women of color? And if so, how?
Well, I would say that it's probably impossible that I haven't. And I think that the ways that I have done that have been just pure ignorance, and the assumption that, um, in having a Black friend or someone that we're coming to the table with the same experience, the way that especially like spiritual people love to say that we're all the same, we're all one. And, it's like not really, because being aware of, what a privileged experience that I've had as a white person, um, we're just not having the same experience. And whatever trauma I think I've experienced, I still don't really understand what it, the experience, what it would feel like, to be in a body with a different skin color where like so much was happening to me just because of that. Plus the trauma of like everything that went on with my ancestors and,
Mm-hmm. Have you ever, this might be a good one. You brought up the spiritual community. That's a good one. I've been in places with super spiritual woo-woo folks, and they're like, we don't see color, but you're at like their retreat and all the presenters are white. A perfect example, Wisdom 2.0. I don't know if you've ever been there, but yeah.
I've heard that I haven't attended personally.
Yeah, so I went and like my energy in my body was just like, oh, like I don't belong here. And they still have this idea of like all races are welcomed, everybody can be here, but it doesn't feel very comfortable. And I kind of almost see that as a form of weaponizing whiteness, is when you like that spiritual assumption that all are welcomed and all can be here.
Yeah. It's like you're ignoring the fact that it's not comfortable to be in a space where, people are experiencing a different reality than you are, and you don't see any familiar people or very many familiar people that can understand the shared experience. So it's not very welcoming.
Yeah. And it was interesting because it was at the time where Black Panther came out. And so when a lot of us people of color would see each other, we just be like, Wakanda forever, like, and just embracing each other, because it was great to see that we are spiritual and we are part of the community and we are loved just by our own personal embrace.
Yeah.
But it was really awkward. Like a lot of times people would stare and they would stare with this awkward smile. I don't know if you've maybe ever done this to someone where you just kind of like stare at them and smile. Super awkward.
I'm sure I have. I think that, our inability to know what to say combined with the desire to say something can often, get at least me into trouble.
Have it gotten you in trouble?
Oh yeah, for sure. But I think that, recently I listened to a lot of podcasts, and recently I was listening to Lena Dunham's podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And Women of the Hour. And what she was saying is she was just saying, yeah, I've done a lot of really awkward things and I've messed up like publicly, and a lot of people hate me. But, I was like, I kind of admire her willingness to keep messing up and to keep, speaking and, keep learning herself, like however publicly. So I know that I have, and I know like the way that it feels when I realize I have said or done something that is offensive. And it's like, then I feel like a deer in the headlights. Like, how do I fix this?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I don't get a chance to, because the moment passes and, time moves on. And then I can only just try to remember next time, shut up or don't say that, or
Well, that's a good way to check yourself and your privilege. Right there.
Mm-hmm.
I want to go a little bit into the throwaway culture I was speaking to earlier, and it's the idea that in America, people are toxic, so we'll just throw them away and shuffle them on under a rug and keep moving. And especially lately with the relationship between women of color and white women. So I want to ask you, how do you think we break this cycle of throwing each other away?
Well, I think that what you're doing is a really beautiful way to break the cycle. And I think, for myself, I feel like I've, had a big lesson in just don't be, for myself, like, do not be so overly sensitive. Like, don't continually make the situation about me and my feelings, because whatever I'm feeling is like nothing compared to, the historical massacre that's been going on forever. And so I think that that's like a huge reframe for me. But specifically what you were saying about throwaway culture is, for me, I've, throughout my life, I mean, since I was a teenager, I've tried to put myself in super awkward situations. Like when I was in high school, I asked if I could join the Black Student Union. And they were like, well, we'll tell you, come back later, we'll tell you next time, And then, the woman that was in charge said, you can be here, but just so you know, like, we need you to sit in the back and listen. And I was like, okay, I can do that, And then when I was in graduate school, I was studying African drumming with this really amazing Jamaican teacher. And she just told me straight up when I was joining her ensemble, she was just like, you're welcome here, but this is not about you. And my energy here is to support, these Black, primarily lesbian women in this drumming school. And so you can be here, but like, check yourself. And I was like, okay. So I think that, like, if more people are willing to show up and just try to be in a space together in the, I don't know. I've always tried to do my best, and I realize I don't, there's a lot I don't know about, but just continuing to show up and being willing to be uncomfortable.
I like that. And I appreciate how you have those examples of kind of just, I don't want to throw it away and I'll make myself uncomfortable to show that I still support this movement or women of color. I think that's awesome. And it really does reinforce the idea that we can be connected to each other and we don't have to throw each other away. I'm also wondering, though, this whole idea around toxicity and relationships and throwing away, is that part of patriarchy? Like, is that something that we've learned because we've seen men do it?
I mean, it seems like a really valid point to me. Like, I've definitely felt, I haven't been really lucky in relationship, and I am a straight woman, and I feel like I'm constantly trying to not be too much for a man, or you feel them like emotionally pull away as soon as you do something that's too much. And so I think that concept that we might be too much and we need to, pull ourselves in, seems very patriarchal to me.
So that feeling, right, that's how I started pointing, that you described, is what I'm speaking for the women who come to my peer support group and the women I know. That is that feeling we feel every day when we go to work. Do volunteer projects.
Yeah.
If we really say how we feel, if we really, no matter what we do, it's too much. It's too much. And so we pull away and shut down and begin to suppress. And we know what suppression leads to, depression, because we can't really fully be ourselves because our feelings and emotions or reactions are too much.
Yeah.
And that does stem from patriarchy, like you said, because with men, even my relationship, same thing. I'm too much. I'm too intense.
Yeah.
Oh, so good, Abby. Just made that connection right now.
Yeah. And one thing that I just wanted to say, and this might be more towards like allyship or co-conspiratoring. That word. Um, but for myself, like whenever I've encountered something that I don't know if I'm comfortable with, you know, like and I'll just, speak about, like, in theory, in the past, I was completely comfortable with however a person wanted to express their sexuality. And then when I was living in San Francisco for the first time, I experienced men making out passionately in public in front of my face. And I was like, that's something I haven't seen before. That is making my heart pound and my face red. And so what I did is I immersed myself in all the media and culture I could to normalize it for myself, because that's an expression of love or lust or passion or whatever it is. But it's, I want to see that and see it for what it is, not be shocked that I haven't seen it before.
So it sounds like you're willing to even to be a co-conspirator, to be an ally, just immerse yourself in the culture, immerse yourself, educate yourself as much as possible without, because earlier you said you don't want to ask your Black friends, so without emotionally laboring your friends, you want to do it for yourself. So that when you see it or if you hear it, you're like, okay, I knew, like, I'm prepped for this.
Yeah, I mean, that's my intention, because I feel like what I have read over and over is, do not expect, your token Black friend to be a spokesperson for all Black people, and don't put that on her or him to expend all that emotional energy to explain things to you. Like, there's Google and the internet. Like, read books, watch TV shows, like really listen to podcasts, be a part of the conversation.
Yeah.
And listening too, like the way that we met through Sidewalk Talk. I mean, for me, that's been huge. It's just listening to people that I wouldn't necessarily have the opportunity to come in contact with.
Yeah, that's true. That space allows you to really hear someone's story and put yourself in their shoes, all while reflecting back what we're hearing them say.
Yeah.
That's powerful. That could actually be a tool to actually help with this whole throwaway culture. Instead of us, and I think we talk about this in Sidewalk Talk, instead of throwing each other away, what if we listened to each other and really heard what we had to say?
Yeah, it's a really powerful thing. And what it inspired me to do is, and actually one of my friends, I wrote a post on Facebook about Sidewalk Talk, and then a friend from high school asked me if I would be her listening partner. And so for the last year and a half, 2 years, we listen to each other. We take turns, like half an hour each. And it is like as powerful or even more sometimes than therapy. And I really appreciate that half hour every week. And, I want to do it and receive it more. And I think that, sometimes I come up against my own I don't know, anxiety, fear, energy, so I really, I've just come out of a probably 6 to 8 month period of depression myself, and I'm starting to feel like I have more to give, and that's really exciting.
That's awesome.
And not just give, but be out there in a way that is reciprocal.
Yeah. I like that a lot. I think we should do a throwaway listening session. Let's not throw each other away. Let's listen or something. Something will come from this.
Yeah.
Into it. We'll talk.
Yeah. I like that a lot.
Yeah. I kind of want to move into a little bit more about centering women of color.
Yes.
And how maybe have you centered a woman of color maybe in your life? Let's start there. And you know what that means?
Well, I think that what I've heard most is how white women center themselves. And so I think, what I'm assuming you're talking about is the opposite of how I can pay attention and you know, either like silence myself or like say, "Oh, okay, we haven't heard from you," or I don't know exactly all the ways that would look like, but that's what I can imagine.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, hey, I want to take a pause here because this is a very important distinction. Sorry, I'm just getting myself set up. So yes, thank you for watching live on YouTube. So I asked Abby, did she know what centering Black and Indigenous and women of culture meant in this interview from 7 years ago? I'm sure Abby has a different answer now than she did 7 years ago. But I want to just have you pause for a second and really have you consider, what does centering Black women mean? And not just centering Black women, what does it mean to pay Black women? Because you can center Black women, but are you paying Black women? And the really interesting thing that I think about in hindsight from this 7 years ago, when I say centering Black women, I'm not telling you to be codependent and to erase yourself, but I am asking, how are you centering the experiences? How are you centering your relationship? How are you not making everything about you? Because here's what I have in my learned experience with white women specifically, in my learned experience, because of the mother wound of many white women that I've worked with in the past, what happens is, because I, using my story personally, can have a very nurturing personality, the minute white women feel that I'm withdrawing my energy, that's when like the centering of themselves, the defensiveness, the anger, the finding issues with me and pointing them out comes into play. And so the question gets into, how do I center my experience, center a Black woman's experience without flagellating myself? Because what I'm noticing in that interview with Abby is that she's like, oh, it just means silence myself. No, that's not relational. That's punitive. And that is a form of flagellation. So it's not about flagellating yourself and silencing yourself as a white woman. It's about, how can I take a step back, take a breath, get into my body, and really hear what's being spoken to me and feel the energy versus just silencing myself. So thank you so much for watching that interview with Abby. We are getting ready to get to the end of our live-a-thon today. So this first live-a-thon was from about 7:30ish to about 10:30 a.m. In this time, we have raised $200 more. It might be a little bit more than that. I think it's like 220 than we started with. The goal is to end the weekend with at least 3,500. And so we're getting there. We're at 2,800. Let's go ahead and pull that on the screen as well so that you all can see where we are in our process. I'm going to stop that screen and share a different one so we can see our fundraising process. 2835 at 6% of our goal. We are going to hit our goal, and we're going to hit our goal relatively soon. How do I know? Because I trust and I know, and I just feel it in my body. And that's what's missing from liberation work, is that our innate knowings and the feeling of this information in our body. And so if you're just now tuning in, I want you to go to healyourwayforward.org, learn more about our collective. Go ahead and go ahead and give a donation or become a member. Your monthly membership sustains us, sustains our work. It's humans like you, my PBS voice. It's humans like you that make all of this possible. And if you have more questions, never hesitate to fill out that contact form, and a member of our support team will be happy to get back to you. I did want to read a little bit from Ruha Benjamin's Race from Technology. So let me go ahead and grab that book. This is part of her last chapter. And in her last chapter, it's about retooling and solidarity and reimagining what justice looks like in the work that all of us do together. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. And again, the book is Race After Technology. To cultivate an ongoing practice of unflinching accountability, a number of organizations are encouraging the development and implementation of coded equity audits for all new and existing technologies. Auditing is most commonly associated with the world of finance, but audit experiments have also been used to demonstrate continued discrimination in real estate and hiring practice in the post-civil rights era. It's an Established methodology in the social services where researchers set up field experiments that expose the pre-existence of racial demonstration in employment. Equity audits, too, are employed in educational settings in which teachers and administrators use established criteria for determining whether equity standards are being met in schools and classrooms. A recent initiative called Auditing Algorithms is developing a research community around the practice of auditing. And they released a white paper in August 2018 that outlines a way forward. To date, the Data and Society Research Institute offers the most thorough elaboration of algorithmic accountability, noting there are few consumer or civil rights protections that limit the type of data used to build data profiles or audit algorithmic decision-making. Advancing this effort, Dana Boyd and MC Ellis pose 3 critical questions that are starting point for any tech equity audit as it relates to AI systems. First question, what are the unintended consequences of designing systems at scale on the basis of existing patterns in society? Second question, when and how should AI systems prioritize individuals over society and vice versa? And third question, when is introducing an AI system the right answer and when is not? I'm going to leave it here on page 186 and really encourage you all. We're in this new world. Get this book, Race After Technology, if you can. Get it from your local library. There's so many ways for you to get access to this book. Listen to the audiobook. But this book is really, really helping to break down the understanding of what we're living in, how it's shaping our world, how it's shaping our imaginations, and what we can do to actually start to consider what does it look like to liberate ourselves and liberate artificial intelligence. And this is me talking to someone who was deplatformed by an artificial intelligence. For me, it was about what is my response? And I was reacting at first, but it's about what is my response? How do I respond to being deplatformed? And it was, we'll go learn about AI. And so thank you to Chrissy and Lisa and Mario and all the folks who were sitting here and learning AI together and being educated on AI as a tool, because tools can also be used as weapons. So how can we be more conscious in our use of it? And how can we go learn to build our own things? And that's what we're doing here at Heal Your Way Forward. So again, thank you so much for tuning in to this first iteration of our Live-a-thon. We'll be back tonight at 7 p.m. PST to 10 p.m. PST for Fundraising After Dark with Maisha T. Hill and maybe some friends. I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much for tuning in to our first half of our Live-a-thon. Again, visit healyourwayforward.org so that you can give your one-time donation. And until I see you again, friends, keep living into your work. Peace.